you want to come with me? Because if you do, then I should warn you. You're going to see all sorts of things. Ghosts from the past, aliens from the future. The day the earth died in a ball of flame. It won't be quiet, it won't be safe, and it won't be calm. But I'll tell you what it will be. I'll tell you what it will be. The trip of a lifetime. Trip of a lifetime.
Doctor Who, Saturdays at 7 on BBC One.
Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail and welcome to the 6th video in this ranking every episode from every Doctor series. And in this video we will be actually ending the modern era of the show, because in today's video I'm going to be, as you can see behind me, ranking every single 9th Doctor story starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor, and this came back in 2005 after a 16-year gap with only a few bits and pieces in between to tide us Doctor Who fans after the cancellations, such as the 30th anniversary Dimensions in Time Doctor Who EastEnders crossover, the 1996 TV movie starring the 8th Doctor Paul McGann, which I will be discussing in the next video in this series when I combine the 7th and the 8th Doctor's episodes together. But if you want to check out some other videos that I've got in this series, because like I said, this is the 6th video. I have done videos on the 15th, 13th, 12th, 11th and 10th Doctors previously, and I'll put links in the descriptions down below for you to go check those out. But what I do is I rank every episode in a tier list format and give you my personal opinion on each episode. And like I said in previous videos, this is just my personal opinion, so if you don't agree with my list, then that is perfectly fine. Christopher Eccleston has been such a strong Doctor. It's so gutting that he only had one actual full series as the Doctor. He could have gone so much further. I really like a lot of his series, and you'll see that when we get into the tier list. But let's waste no more time and jump straight into the final tier list for the modern era before we move into the classic era, where I rank every single 9th Doctor story. Okay, and this is my ranking every 9th Doctor episode tier list. So same as before, I've got 5 different categories, starting with top of the shop. Before I go, I just want to tell you, you were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And do you know what? So was I, from his regeneration. Then we've got the great episodes. They're not top of the shop, but they are really good stories. We've got Just This Once, Everybody Lives. Then in the okay category, we've got I'm Not Here to Kill It, I'm Here to Give It a Chance. Then in the 4th category, these are stories that I think are bad, not terrible, but they're just not the best. We've got I Did It Again, I Picked Another Stupid Ape, I Should Have Known, from when he's a bit angry at Rose in the episode Father's Day when Rose betrays him and tricks him. And then bottom of the barrel, so absolutely god-awful stories. We've got I Know What Should Happen, I Know What You Deserve, Exterminate from Dalek, when he's in Van Statten's museum interrogating the Dalek and questioning why is there a Dalek still existing. As you can see, we've only got 13 stories because Eccleston only did 1 series, so it's going to be a lot shorter than before. But they are some solid stories, but I'm going to give you my reasons why now. So the first one we're going to talk about is Rose, which for me, I think is an okay story. Don't get me wrong, it could easily go into good because it is entertaining. You know, it brings back the Autons as well for the classic fans as well who have watched the previous 26 seasons and the TV movie. So you've got a bit of familiarity there, but you've also got then, a good monster to introduce you for the modern fans who know nothing of Doctor Who or this is their first ever episode. They introduce the concept of the Time War. So the Doctor has gone through something big. So classic Whovians are like, what's happened to the Doctor? And then for modern fans, it gives them something more to try and find out about the Doctor. Why is he acting the way he acts? He's a very dark and, to a degree at the start, quite a sinister character as well. He doesn't show much in terms of like remorse or, people just get killed and he just doesn't seem to care. He sort of like brushes it off to start with, which classic fans would be like, well, that's not very Doctor-y, but then that's because of the Time War, which we need to learn more about. It introduces you to Billie Piper, who plays Rose Tyler, which I really like Billie Piper's relationship with the 9th Doctor in season 1. I think they got really good chemistry together. And yeah, it's just a fun story. But let's not forget, in this story, it also has Auton Mickey, the classic bin scene, and the Pizza. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. It is a fun story. I could easily put it up here, but for me, I think the more I've watched it and the more I've thought about it, I think it is an okay story and an okay start, to an era. The next story is The End of the World, which I think this definitely goes up here. I enjoy this story a lot more. The Doctor takes Rose to basically witness the end of the world, watch the planet burn as the sun expands and the sun explodes, which is quite dark for a Doctor and goes to show how the Doctor's humanity and his sensitivity towards his companions has sort of gone due to the Time War, because, a Doctor wouldn't necessarily do that. First trip abroad, let's go watch all your planet die. That's a bit much, if I'm perfectly honest. But, they go to this space station, and you find that a lot in the Ninth Doctor's era. He spends a lot of time on a space station. He's either on Earth or on a space station. But yeah, and they've been not invited, they sneak into this party full of all the rich, some of the last of a certain species. You're introduced to such a good variety of different characters and different, alien species. And I miss that in Doctor Who. The Face of Bo gets introduced in this story as well, which if you know about the history of the Face of Bo, it leads up to being Captain Jack, which is quite interesting. They introduce you to Cassandra, who's really, really good in this story as well. They introduce you to this character Jade, who the Doctor's got a little bit of a fling on. She's sort of this tree creature as well, which is really, really interesting. You've got these robot spiders that work for Cassandra. You've got this alien called the Mox of Balhoun, which has a brilliant design, if I'm perfectly honest. There's some really well-designed creatures, but there's something weird going on, and we find out that Cassandra is actually planning on killing all the alien species that have been invited to watch the planet burn, and she'll be the only survivor, and she'll because she's the last human, so to speak. But there's some great banter between her and the Doctor, and I think it is done really, really well. And the Doctor and Rose's relationship forms even more in this story when the Doctor's trying to understand why Rose is unhappy or why Rose doesn't get the things he's doing. You get some good questions, and you get to learn a lot more about the Doctor and Rose in this story. So I quite like that. He gives Rose the ability to call him, which is mainly a New Who thing, to call her mum from outer space, where the Doctor uses his sonic or uses the TARDIS to power up a companion's phone so they can phone home. It is quite good. I quite like it, and I like all the setting on the space station. It's quite an emotional story as well. Then we got Unquiet Dead. This one for me is also okay. Back in not in Victorian London, but in Victorian Cardiff. It's a ghost story with these creatures known as the Gelf, who live off the gas that's going around. And the Doctor and Rose get to visit Charles Dickens, and we find out that the Doctor's a massive fan of Charles Dickens, who's telling the story of A Christmas Carol. It is really, really good and really creepy. The Gelf zombies, when they possess people, look really, really scary. And the Gelf as well, in their blue, light-hearted form, and then in this sinister, dark, orange and red evil form. And we find out that the reason that they're so evil as well is due to the fact that the Time War has spread and destroyed their species, and they're just scavenging to try and survive. So you learn more and more about the Time War through this. You also get the character of Gwyneth, who's actually played by the same actress who plays Gwen Cooper in Torchwood, which is really, really interesting, and there's supposedly a link there. But yeah, I quite like it, and I just like the Doctor's relationship with Charles Dickens in this, because he is such a fanboy of Charles Dickens. So it is really, really good to see them bounce off each other. I think Victorian Cardiff looks really, really interesting, really, really good. The way they use the snow and all to make it set around Christmas for the Christmas Carol, I think is really, really good as well. Yeah, I think it is a fairly okay story. It's pretty decent. Then we've got Aliens of London, which part one, again, I think is okay. It's, the first two-parter of the modern era. This big alien spaceship has crashed into Big Ben, landed in the Thames, and UNIT have come. Yes, UNIT. So the first hint properly towards the classic series have investigated the crash site and taken a body out and have taken it to this hospital, and the Doctor goes to investigate. But not before the Doctor getting into trouble with Rose's mum, Jackie Tyler, as the Doctor has finally brought her back home, but has brought her back late by a couple of months. I can't remember if it's a couple of months or a year, but she's gone missing, and so the Doctor's in trouble for that. Which is quite funny. I love the Ninth Doctor's relationship with Jackie. He doesn't have the best relationship with Jackie because he's still trying to find himself. But it is really, really good. I love the little pilot pig that they discover in the in the Thames when the spaceship crashes. It's really, really cute, and I wish they used that a lot more. We also find out that Tosh from Torchwood is actually in this. They reference that later in actual Torchwood, but she was sent on an undercover mission, I think, because Owen wasn't available or something was going on with Owen, and so she had to take over. And so that's quite interesting to have the link there. But it's an interesting little start to your first two-parter, but there's a bigger mystery going on with a villain that I think desperately should have come back in Doctor Who by now, or should come back if Doctor Who ever does come back properly. Which brings me on to the next part, which is part 2, World War III, which I think is good. Basically, aliens in Downing Street. It's the first story with the Slitheen, and the Slitheen appear a few times in Christopher Eccleston's era, but in particular in the Sarah Jane adventures, and they are a fantastic concept for a villain. You know, these big fat aliens that hide inside skin-tight human suits. They have zips on their heads, they come out, and they are really menacing and creepy, and I really, really like them. Interesting way to kill them as well, using vinegar, and they fart a lot. It's a nice little play on the whole farting gag, to be honest. But yeah, it all takes place in 10 Downing Street, where the Slitheen have infiltrated it and are planning on destroying the world, you know, using all like nuclear weapons and missiles and this, that and the other. It's really, really good. And you get to see the relationship between all our core characters come to life here. The Doctor and Rose, Mickey, Jackie. You know, it's really, really good and quite funny as well. I really do like this story. And there's a couple of great speeches from the Ninth Doctor in this story as well. The Ninth Doctor at this point has proper come into his element, and it's really, really good. The next story, now if you've watched my ranking, my top 10 modern era stories, you know where this story is going. This is Dalek, and Dalek is instantly going up here in the top of the shop. Before I go, I just want to tell you are fantastic, because Dalek is hands down probably my favourite episode of the modern era of the show. Just for so many reasons. It's very claustrophobic. It's a base, technically, Under Siege story. There's one Dalek that goes on a rampage due to Rose waking it up due to touching it with time energy. It's battle damaged. It's the lone survivor, apparently, of the Time War. The Doctor doesn't believe that the Daleks are around, so when he discovers there's a Dalek, he freaks out. And for classic Whovians, seeing the Doctor be like that to a Dalek is really weird for us, and we would be very shocked. Because he's scared, he's terrified, but then when he realises the Dalek can't actually use its weapon, he then turns and gets really sinister and dark and like taunts the Dalek, you know, so you can get that new relationship with the Doctor and the Dalek. I think it's really good. I love that scene, it's beautiful. But seeing the Dalek then get revitalised and go on a rampage, and it just goes on a killing spree. We see a Dalek properly fly and hover upstairs, which obviously we did in the classic series with Remembrance of the Daleks, and briefly in Revelation of the Daleks. But you get to see it as a more standard process now in the new series, and it is terrifying then as well. And it is really, really such a good story. It all takes place in this big museum full of lots of alien artifacts. You see a Cyberman head from the classic series. I believe Revenge of the Cybermen or Invasion. It's one of those. You see a Slitheen arm. You know, there's just this guy, this American guy who just collects lots of alien stuff and keeps it. And he's torturing the Dalek in the basement, so the Dalek then goes on a rampage to try and get to Henry Van Staten. We're introduced to a temporary new companion, Adam Mitchell, who literally is in this story and the next story, and then the Doctor kicks him off the TARDIS. My fiancée has a soft spot for Adam. I'm not really too keen on him. He's all right in this story, but he's a bit insufferable in the next story. But yeah, it is really, really good. And the fire in the Doctor's eyes when he's talking to the Dalek as the Dalek's coming on the screen, and the emotional speech at the end where the Dalek is starting to become a bit more human and a bit more sensitive due to Rose's influence taking it over, and it pretty much sacrifices itself, and you see the Doctor actually change. This is the turning point for the Ninth Doctor, where he's showing mercy because he lets the Dalek, he lets the Dalek live, but lets the Dalek do its business, you know. Let the Dalek basically commit suicide. But yeah, the Doctor does turn a little bit in this story. But it's just a great story. If there's one Doctor Who story you watch, and only one, watch Dalek. It's a fantastic story. You don't even need to know much about Doctor Who's history to watch Dalek. You can just put it on and you will enjoy it. The Long Game. Now, yeah, unfortunately for me, this story isn't very good. It's probably one of the weakest stories of season 1, if I'm perfectly honest. Not a huge fan of it. you know, you go to the this space station again, but this time this space station is more relevant. This is Satellite 5, which will come up later in the finale of season 1. And there's just this, the Doctor takes Adam, who's now joined the TARDIS crew, and Rose. They go on a little adventure. They explore this little market just to show Adam what it's like traveling in space. And they just get involved in this crazy shenanigans that's going on the satellite, which is under rule by this big alien creature known as the Jagrafess, who's helping to rule over the Earth. Simon Pegg's also in this as a character called the Editor, who's quite a creepy looking character, and they've like made him like really pale because on the top floor where the Jagrafess lives, it lives in this very cool, like icy climate, and they're kidnapping people in order to monitor the space station and keep charge of the Earth. But due to the Doctor's influence in defeating the Jagrafess, he has then a massive impact on the future events, which will crop up then later. But all the while, Adam has gone off on his own, is interfering and, you know, meddling in things that he shouldn't be, which is what causes the Doctor to then kick him off the TARDIS. But yeah, it's not the best story. I tend to want to skip it when we get to it. It's not the best. The pacing is off all over the place. And yeah, not a huge fan of it, to be honest. Father's Day is a good story. I think Father's Day is a fairly solid story. It's your typical you can't meddle with history type of story. And it centres around Rose, because obviously we learn more about Rose. We know that her father is no longer with her. But in particular, we sort of realise that the reason Rose wanted to travel with the Doctor in the first place is because the Doctor mentioned in Rose that not only does the TARDIS travel in space, but in time, which clicked that maybe Rose could one day ask the Doctor to take her to see her father's death, and she might try and stop it. And that's exactly what she does. And it causes these creatures called Reapers to come and try and fix what Rose has done, but it can't like distinguish between what should be and what shouldn't be, and so it's eating time, eating people, and causing chaos. And basically, the Rose needs to reverse what's done, but it causes huge conflict between the Doctor and Rose, which is what I like to see. The Doctor and companion shouldn't always get along because one's an alien, one's a human. You have differences in values, differences in opinions, and that's what it should be. Whereas nowadays, like in the Jodie era, everyone gets along and everyone is like, yes, Doctor, yes, we agree, we agree, we agree. I like stories like this where there's a bit of conflict, and Rose almost gets abandoned by the Doctor, but the only reason she doesn't is because the Doctor can't fly away in his TARDIS because of the paradox that Rose has caused the TARDIS to basically get eaten inside out. So it is really, really good though, and it all takes place in the church. And it is a very emotional story, and you get to see Rose connect with her father, which is really, really nice. And you get to see a past Rose and a past Jackie. You know, it is a good story, and I'd highly recommend watching it. The Doctor does get put out of action for a lot of this story as well, so Rose and Pete and all have to be the one to save the day. Then we've got the next two-parter, which I'm going to put together because I like both of them practically the same. We have got The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. A two-part story, which, if you've seen my ranking of every modern era of the show, you know my thoughts on The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. Very, very scary story. Very tense, very dark story. Introduces new companion who does stay for the rest of the series, played by John Barrowman, Captain Jack Harkness. An amazing character, you know, despite everything that's gone on in the past with John Barrowman. I think personally, you know, I still love the character of Captain Jack Harkness, and I think he is fantastic. And that TARDIS team of 9, Rose and Jack, is brilliant, might I add. It is great. But yeah, it takes place in World War II. The Doctor and Rose are following this like capsule through the time vortex, which is carrying like a dangerous substance. It lands during World War II, but apparently it's already done some damage, and it crashes, ends up damaging this little boy who's then hurt, and then this little creatures inside known as nanogenes tries to fix him, but it goes wrong and puts like a gas mask on his face, and anyone who that boy touches gets a gas mask too, and he constantly says, "Are you my mummy?" It's so creepy. I love it, and it terrified me when I first watched it. And The Empty Child and Doctor Dances were the first New Who stories I ever watched, so pretty intense for my first Doctor Who stories. The Doctor's relationship with Captain Jack is brilliant. They're constantly bickering at each other, but in a playful way. And then obviously when Jack does join the TARDIS crew, that continues on through the rest of the series, which is really, really nice to see. But yeah, there's also a character called Nancy, who's an interesting little sub-companion that the Doctor sort of adopts because she is trying to find her brother Jamie, who's the little boy, the main boy, but we find out that actually she's his mother, which changes a lot. But yeah, it is really good. I'd highly recommend watching it, but it can be scary. And that's the thing. Stephen Moffat wrote this story, and Stephen Moffat knows how to make basic things scary, and he nailed that to a T in this story. Then we've got Boomtown, which just might surprise some people, but I actually put in this up here. I actually really like it. It is basically just a filler story. It's got the return of Margaret Blaine Slevine, who's the only survivor from the Slevine two-parter earlier in the series. She is now, I think she's the mayor of Cardiff, and she's building these nuclear power plants. She's trying to find a way to get back home, and the TARDIS lands. This also sets up Torchwood because she uses the rift, opening the heart of the TARDIS, causing a rift to form, which then allows Torchwood to grow underneath. But it's just a basic story of the Doctor and co. are trapped in Cardiff Bay as the TARDIS needs to, revitalise itself for 24 hours. So they just go off, have a meal, bump into the Slevine. It's a very jokey story. Mickey comes back, so you've got the Doctor, Rose, Jack, and Mickey. It is just a fun, light-hearted story, and to watch the Doctor and Margaret Blaine have their conversation because the Doctor's, trying to prosecute her for her crimes, and she's due to be put on trial and put to death when the Doctor takes her home. So he gives her a last meal, but she obviously betrays him. It's a fun story. Again, it is a fun, light-hearted story to a degree, and like I said, the banter between the characters is great. But you do notice a lot more now, and I haven't mentioned it till now, there is an overarching plot thread that goes on in Series 1, that being the words Bad Wolf, which pop up a couple of times throughout the series. They pop up here on a banner in Margaret Blaine's office. In the Dalek story, the helicopter that lands in Van Statten's museum says Bad Wolf 1 descending. In the Slevine two-part early in the series, there's a kid who graffitis Bad Wolf on the TARDIS. All these words are following the Doctor and Rose through their travels, and we don't know why, but that does get solved in the finale two-parter. Which, speaking of the finale two-parter, again, I'm also going to put these up here. So, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways is a fantastic finale. Apart from the Series 10 finale, is probably my favourite finale of all of New Who to this day still. This is how you do a finale two-parter. Part 1, the Doctor and co. return to Satellite 5 far in the future, where the Doctor reaps the effects of what he did earlier in the long game. The Doctor and co. get separated into different games, because it's called the Game Station now. So the Doctor's trapped in Big Brother. Captain Jack is trapped in this little robot version. I think it's Trini and Susanna. It's like a dress-up sort of show. And then Rose is trapped in the Weakest Link with the android, which is really, really cool. So you get to see the different games, but all the games result in only one person surviving and all the rest get obliterated. But we find out that there's a secret going on, that someone is in charge of these games that's not on the satellite. And it turns out that it's the Daleks, that there's a hidden Dalek fleet, and the Daleks are controlling the games. And then in part 2, the Daleks then invade the space station. So again, Base Under Siege story, but they're invading the space station to conquer the space station, to then take over the Earth and take over the universe. And the Doctor has to pay the ultimate price, which ends up being his life, in order to save his companion Rose, who he initially sent away in order to keep her safe, but she forced her way back, causing the Doctor to regenerate into David Tennant's 10th Doctor. And he has a beautiful final speech. He goes out smiling. He goes out the way the 9th Doctor should go. And you can see the true character growth of the 9th Doctor in this story. And it is a fantastic story. And the Daleks are scary. The Daleks are menacing. And it is just a fantastic story. I mean, I think fantastic sums up, and why it's one of the 9th Doctor's catchphrases. Fantastic sums up the 9th Doctor era perfectly. But that is going to be my ranking of every 9th Doctor episode. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on the 9th Doctor era. And now in the next video, we will be teetering then into the classic series, where I will be combining both the 7th and the 8th Doctor episodes, because obviously the 8th Doctor didn't really get many TV appearances. And I'm not delving into Big Finish, just TV. So I will combine both 7 and 8 into the same video. So that will be the next video. But like I said, I hope you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.